a titanium action that weighs less than half of its steel twin, a lever gun chambered for a cartridge nobody thought would fit, a bolt design 2 years in the making, built to end an argument older than most of us. That was SHOT Show January 2026. Today, all 7 are real, shipping, and built to outlive you. Number 7. The Savage 110 Core Hunter Westfield, Massachusetts, 1958. Savage designer Nicholas Brewer builds a bolt action around an idea most gun makers had dismissed as a shortcut. Instead of demanding perfect machining tolerances between barrel and receiver, let a threaded barrel nut take up the slack. That nut became one of the quietly influential features in American rifle manufacturing, and the Model 110 it belonged to has been in continuous production ever since. For 2026, Savage rebuilt the part owners actually complained about. Not the action, the stock. The 110 Core Hunter carries the new AccuFit V2 system. The original AccuFit worked fine, but it asked you to sit at a workbench with tools and a bag of plastic spacers. V2 replaces all of that with a quick-set dial. Comb height adjusts up to 0.8 of an inch. Length of pull moves a full inch in 1/8 inch increments. You do it standing in a field, with cold hands, in under a minute. The pistol grip changed too. 3 interchangeable modules in small, medium, and large, each held by 1 screw. Savage also partnered with Limsaver on a new butt pad the company says reduces felt recoil by as much as half. Underneath, it is the same machine that has been working since the Eisenhower administration. A carbon steel barrel from 16.5 to 22 inches with straight fluting and a threaded muzzle. The user-adjustable AccuTrigger. A detachable box magazine. M-lock slots in the forend and a threaded bolt handle so the knob can be swapped. The number that matters most is 33 chamberings running from 204 Ruger all the way up to .375 Ruger, including .350 Legend and .400 Legend for hunters restricted to straight wall cartridges. Many of those are offered in left-hand configurations, which is still rarer than it should be at this price. MSRP sits between $799 and $839. Is it exciting? Not really, but a design that has survived nearly 7 decades of production. Multiple ownership changes, and every passing trend has earned the right to be a little boring. The next rifle is the opposite of boring because it does something a lever action has never done in 130 years. Number 6. The Bergara Premier Cima Pro Bergara takes its name from a town in the Basque Country of northern Spain, and the company spent years making barrels for other manufacturers before it ever put its own name on a complete rifle. That order of operations shows. Barrel makers think about steel behavior, heat, and consistency before they think about anything else. The Premier Cima Pro is what happens when a barrel company decides to build a mountain rifle. Start with the weight. 5.5 pounds bare, depending on configuration, with the heaviest builds at about 5 3/4. For a centerfire rifle that can be ordered in .300 Winchester Magnum or .300 PRC, that number is difficult to believe until you actually lift one. The stock is the reason. Bergara builds it entirely from carbon, cured in an autoclave, which is the same pressure and heat process aerospace shops use for structural aircraft components. Curing under pressure forces voids out of the resin. Fewer voids means a stiffer shell, and a stiffer shell means the barrel channel does not flex when the rifle heats up or gets soaked at 9,000 feet. The barrel is Bergara's Cure carbon-wrapped design. The action is the Bergara Premier, machined with lightning cuts and an enlarged ejection port. That ejection port is a small detail that solves a genuine field problem, because brass that does not clear cleanly is one of the most common ways a bolt gun ties itself up when you are cold and rushed. TriggerTech supplies the trigger, and Bergara guarantees sub-MOA accuracy. Chamberings run from 22 Creedmoor up to 300 PRC, and the price lands around $3,099. Now the honest part. Light rifles kick, and physics does not negotiate. A 5.5-pound rifle in 300 PRC is something you shoot carefully and not often. Bergara understands that, which is why the Creedmoor chamberings are the ones most owners will actually live with year after year. This next one is where the list takes a turn nobody in the industry expected. Number 5. The Marlin Model 1894 Trapper in 10mm auto. The Model 1894 has been in production on and off since 1894. Marlin's solid top, side-ejecting lever action was built from the beginning around pistol cartridges, the .3220 and .3840 and .4440 that a rider could share between his revolver and his saddle carbine. That logic held for 130 years for one mechanical reason. Rimmed revolver cartridges feed beautifully through a tube magazine and a lever action lifter, because the rim is what the lifter and extractor grab. Rimless automatic pistol cartridges have no rim, so when Ruger, which acquired Marlin out of Remington's bankruptcy in 2020 and moved production to Myodan, North Carolina, announced a Model 1894 chambered in 10mm auto, that was genuinely new ground. No manufacturer had ever built a lever-action rifle in 10mm. The engineering lives in the small parts. A cold hammer forged stainless barrel just over 16 inches, 6 grooves, with a 1 in 16 right-hand twist, chosen to stabilize typical 10mm bullets. The muzzle is threaded 5/8 by 24. Receiver, lever, magazine tube, and barrel are all stainless steel. The smaller components are nickel-plated. The stock is black laminate, which shrugs off moisture in a way that walnut never has. Marlin also used this rifle to introduce an upgraded fire control system across the entire Trapper line. The sear is now E-nickel Teflon plated. The sear notch geometry in the hammer was reshaped for a smoother, more consistent break. And a small spring was added between the sear and the trigger to eliminate the trigger flop that lever guns have been criticized for since forever. Reviewers who ran 200+ rounds through it described the trigger as among the smoothest they had felt on any lever action. Capacity is 10+1. Weight is 6.3 pounds. Overall length is 33¼ inches. Sights are a receiver-mounted Skinner aperture system, fully adjustable with a white striped front post. MSRP is $1,599. Pay attention to the ballistics here, because they explain the whole project. A 10mm round fired from a 16-inch barrel picks up somewhere in the range of 250 feet per second over the same round from a handgun. Hornady launched a Levervolution 10mm load alongside the rifle, a 150-grain FTX built specifically for this application. It is not flawless. Testers noted occasional sticky feeding with certain loads, which smoothed out as the action wore in. That is fairly normal behavior for a brand new chambering in a design that predates the automobile. Number 4. The next generation FN SCAR. In the early 2000s, United States Special Operations Command went looking for a modular rifle family that could swap calibers and barrel lengths on demand. FN won that competition in 2004. The result was the SCAR, fielded as the MK16 and the MK17. And for 2 decades that rifle has been the reference point for short-stroke gas piston design. It also had a well-documented flaw. The SCAR's bolt carrier travels a long, hard cycle. In 7.62, the carrier slams rearward into the backplate and then slams forward again on the return stroke. Shooters called it bolt bounce. What it did in practice was shake optics apart. Reticles sheared, electronics failed. A rifle that could survive almost anything was quietly destroying the expensive glass mounted on top of it. In October 2025, FN discontinued the legacy commercial SCAR line entirely. 3 months later, at SHOT Show in January 2026, they brought it back. The centerpiece of the new rifle is a lighter, 2-piece bolt carrier with a hydraulic buffer built into it, developed in partnership with KindShot. A hydraulic buffer works on the same principle as a shock absorber on a truck. Instead of steel hitting steel, fluid is forced through a small orifice, and the impulse gets spread across time rather than arriving all at once. Writers who shot the old and new rifles back-to-back described felt recoil as roughly cut in half. That is the headline. But FN counted more than 24 changes. The receiver is extended, covering more of the barrel and the gas block. There is an integrated rail with M-lock slots at the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions. Controls are fully ambidextrous, with a bolt catch on both sides and 3 interchangeable selector levers offering 16 possible combinations. Carbine models received an improved single-stage trigger. The 20S Precision model got a 2-stage. Muzzle threading moved to American standards. There are 3 models: the 16S in 5.56, the 17S in 7.62, and the 20s in 7.62 or 6.5 Creedmoor. At an FN range event, one writer ran the 20S on steel out to 1,385 yards and went 2 for 2 at 1,000. FN says pricing stayed roughly where the legacy guns sat, between about $3,800 and $4,500. The 17S shipped first in early 2026, with the 16S and 20S following. 20 years of complaints, solved by one hydraulic buffer. Sometimes the fix really is that specific. If you are getting something out of this, subscribe. Every week I take one rifle or one design problem and pull it apart down to the mechanism. Number 3. The Franklin Armory Prevail. Every bolt-action rifle ever built has had to pick a side in one argument, and that argument is over a century old. Controlled round feed, the Mauser system, grabs the cartridge rim under a large claw extractor the instant it leaves the magazine and never lets go. Turn the rifle upside down, work the bolt halfway and change your mind, and the round stays under control the entire time. That is why dangerous game hunters swear by it. The cost is a slower, less forgiving action that usually will not let you drop a single loose round on top of the magazine and close the bolt on it. Plil-Feed, the Remington 700 system, simply shoves the cartridge forward and snaps a small extractor over the rim once it is already chambered. Smoother, cheaper to manufacture, faster to run, and perfectly happy to chamber a single loose round. The cost is that a short-stroked bolt can produce a double feed. Franklin Armory, a Minden, Nevada company that built its name on unconventional designs, spent roughly 2 years engineering a third option. They call it Total Round Control, and it debuted in January 2026 on the company's first bolt-action rifle, the Prevail. A large controlled round feed-style extractor slips over the case rim as the cartridge clears the magazine lips, so the round is captured early, exactly like a Mauser. Then, as the bolt closes, the case head contacts an actuator that presses a spring-loaded plunger ejector against it. Now the extractor and the ejector are both holding the case. You get Mauser-style control on the way in and push-feed authority on the way out, and the empty case ejects with force even when the bolt is cycled slowly. The rest is built to match. An M700 footprint receiver so it drops into M700 pattern stocks. Franklin's own Conquest trigger, user-adjustable from 1.5 pounds to 4 pounds. An integral 20 Moe optics rail, every action blueprinted. A bolt head that slips off the bolt body without tools for caliber changes. AIX pattern magazines and an AG composite stock. Barrels in either fluted stainless steel or Franklin's carbon ceramic Fidelis. Initial chamberings are 6.5 Creedmoor, with pricing around $3,200 for the steel barrel and $3,800 for carbon. Company President Jay Jacobson described the project as 2 solid years of engineering, and made a point of saying it was not just the bolt. The entire action had to be redesigned around it. Franklin has said the long-term goal is a dangerous game rifle, with long and magnum actions planned to follow. Number 2. The Weatherby Mark V Backcountry Capra. Roy Weatherby introduced the Mark V action in 1958, the same year the Savage 110 appeared. His concept was 9 locking lugs and a 54-degree bolt lift, engineered to contain the pressures of his own high-velocity Magnum cartridges. The Mark V has been Weatherby's flagship ever since, with a reputation as one of the strongest bolt actions ever mass-produced. In January 2026, Weatherby used that action to build the lightest production bolt-action rifle it has ever offered. Starting weight 4 pounds, titanium is the reason. The Capra uses Weatherby's 6-lug short and 6-lug standard Mark V actions, machined from titanium rather than steel. Titanium comes in at roughly 42% the weight of its steel counterpart, and it resists corrosion naturally, which matters when a rifle spends 10 days above timberline in bad weather. The 6-lug short action has a strange history of its own. For decades it existed only in the Varmint Master Deluxe, a niche rifle most shooters never handled. Weatherby relaunched it in 2025 with compatibility for the 308 case family. And that single change is what made a true ultralight Mark V possible at all. The barrel is where the engineering gets elegant. It is a thin contour with double spiral fluting that wraps into a double helix. Fluting removes steel, which is the entire point. But a helix geometry removes it in a pattern that preserves rigidity while increasing surface area, so the barrel also cools faster. Despite the light contour, Weatherby still guarantees sub-MOA groups from a cold barrel with quality ammunition. The stock came out of a partnership with Peak 44. They took the ultralight Blacktooth and evolved it into the new Bridger, which drops the hinged floor plate in favor of Weatherby's first commercially available blind magazine, Mark V. Add weight-saving cutouts, a shortened forend, and a 3D hex recoil pad with a honeycomb structure designed to soak up the punishment a 4-pound rifle hands back. TriggerTech supplies the trigger. Chamberings include 22 Creedmoor, 25 Creedmoor, 6.5 Creedmoor, .270 Winchester, .280 Ackley Improved, .240 Weatherby Magnum, and the Weatherby RPM cartridges. Overall length runs 36.5 to just over 41 inches. Price is around $3,499. A 4-pound rifle is a joy to carry and a discipline to shoot. Weatherby engineered hard around recoil, but a light rifle in a fast cartridge rewards practice and punishes carelessness. This is a specialist tool, built for a specialist, and it does not pretend otherwise. Number 1. The Seekins Precision SIC. Everything else on this list was designed for a market. This one was designed for a contract. The SC, short for Seekins Interchangeable Caliber, was engineered at the company's Lewiston, Idaho headquarters specifically for submission under a United States Special Operations Command requirement. That origin shows in every decision. Starting with the component it does not have, there is no chassis. Most precision rifles are a barreled action dropped into an aluminum chassis and torqued down with action screws. Every one of those interfaces is a place where parts can move, and movement over thousands of rounds is how a rifle quietly loses its zero. The SIC deletes the problem. The receiver is a single piece of machined steel that serves as both action and chassis. There are no action screws, no bedding surfaces, and no torque specification to get wrong. The 20 MOA optics rail is machined directly into the top of the receiver, so the mounting surface and the action are the same object. Then there is the modularity, which is the actual purpose of the rifle. A complete caliber change kit is 4 components: barrel, bolt head, magazine well, and magazine. Swapping between them requires exactly one tool, a T25 driver, and Seekins stores that driver inside the butt pad so it cannot be left behind. The grip and trigger assembly pull free on takedown pins for cleaning. A single receiver runs 6.5 Creedmoor, .308 Winchester, .300 Winchester PRC, .300 Norma Magnum, .338 Norma Magnum, and 338 Lapua Magnum. Short action through the largest magnums with dedicated components engineered for each, rather than adapters and workarounds. The barrel is carbon fiber wrapped 416R stainless with hand-lapped, single-point cut rifling and Seekins machined flats into the exposed steel so there is something solid to grip when changing barrels. The trigger is a TriggerTech Diamond 2-stage. The stock folds with a cutout that clears the bolt handle instead of fighting it. Cold is around 15.5 pounds. Price is roughly $8,900. That weight is not a flaw. It is the specification. Testers have reported 5-shot sub-Moe groups hot or cold and recoil that tracks straight back rather than climbing, which is what lets a shooter watch their own impact through the scope at extreme distance. Line these 7 rifles up next to each other and a pattern appears. Almost none of the important work happened in the parts you can see. A barrel nut from 1958 still doing its job. A sear notch reshaped by a fraction of a millimeter. A spring the size of a grain of rice, killing trigger flop. Fluid moving through an orifice inside a bolt carrier. A plunger ejector meeting a claw extractor at exactly the right instant. Rifles do not last because of what is printed on the box. They last because somebody identified a small, specific, unglamorous problem and solved it, and then solved the next one the following year, and the year after that. The Savage 110 is still here after nearly 70 years. The Mark V is still here. The Model 1894 has been in production since Grover Cleveland was serving his second term in the White House. Which one belongs in your safe, and which one is overbuilt for what it actually does? Tell me in the comments, because that argument is half the fun of this hobby. And if you want more of this, the history, the engineering, and the stories behind the steel, there is a new one every week.